Hi, everybody. I had so many people come up to me and say, "You're the reason I'm here," and it makes my heart swell. It's great because I know that so many of you have followed my work through YouTube, the podcast, my classes online. How many of you have only ever seen me in a little box? Yeah. How many of you have just heard about me and really don't know anything about me? Okay. Okay, well, hopefully you'll thank her when we're done, because to me this is about sharing what I know so that you can do what I do. I am a medium, but that to me is what provides the oomph, the background, the evidence of what I really want to share with everybody, and that is who we really are as souls. Why is mediumship possible? Because we're so much more than these human bodies. My messages are many. I'll just rattle off a few right now. That death is not the end. That's huge. That your loved ones who have passed are still here, accessible, trying to get through to you, leaving messages. And I'll show you how to notice those messages. That love never dies. That we are love incarnate. I mean, who could ask for more than that? I've had people come up to me at conferences. I attend the conference of the Helping Parents Heal organization. I've had dozens of people at those conferences come up to me and say, "You saved my life." Because when somebody you love with all your heart passes and you think that's the end, you want to join them. I understand that feeling. So it's not me, it's the work of showing people that they're not dead and gone. This workshop, I believe we're calling it Making the Connection. The teaching's always the same no matter what title we put on it. It's that you can connect across the veil yourself because you have the same equipment I do. It's called a soul. So I'm going to just share with you a little bit of my background today, and then I'm going to tell you how and why mediumship works, give you some tools, and we'll even do a couple practices today. All of that in an hour and a half. How's that sound? Okay. I share my background with you now because it's easy to dismiss people that say, "I talk to dead people." It sounds woo-woo. I used to dismiss people who said that. That was back when I wore a Navy uniform. I just put my uniform on the other day. It still fits. But it felt so constricting to me. You know, buttoned up to here, a tie, this blue jacket, and I just immediately went into that Navy posture. That person is still in here, but I found a softer, more flowy side of myself that fits better now. But for 20 years, I was a Navy officer. I retired as a commander. I got the checks in the block that any Navy officer wants. I served as a commanding officer. But then I got a few that most officers don't have a chance to do. The head of the Navy, the Chief of Naval Operations, asked me to be his special assistant for protocol. Then I got to teach at the Naval Academy, taught political science. So I have a master's degree in national security affairs. So right away with the woo-woo bars going down a little, right? But the biggest honor was when the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff needed a new aide, the person that goes with him everywhere, makes sure he has what he needs at all times, knows where he's going, keeps him on track, tells other generals and admirals, "I'm sorry, we have to go now." Rides around in the bulletproof limo in Washington, D.C., gets him to the White House, all those kinds of things. He normally would interview aides, but somehow he saw the kind of work I did and said, "How would you like to be my aide?" It was an incredible honor. It was incredibly cool to fly on Air Force One with the president. That was amazing. It was also very stressful to be with the chairman on September 11th and be in the last aircraft in U.S. airspace. Returning home, flying over Manhattan, seeing the burning World Trade Center, and then hours later seeing our burning office building, the Pentagon. That was the start of my spiritual journey. But it quickly became truncated because I asked the deep spiritual questions that most of us eventually get around to asking, and then quickly put them away because I wasn't finding satisfactory answers. It wasn't personal enough. But it became very personal for me when my stepdaughter Susan was struck and killed by lightning. She was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, 27 years old. I took my husband to a medium. He didn't even know what mediums were. Some of you heard me give the brief explanation of this last night in a panel I was on, and now he's married to one. I had no idea I would be a medium. This is another way that I give people hope. They, like I, thought you have to be what people call a born medium. There's some really talented mediums. Mark Anthony is one who's speaking at this conference, who have been seeing spirits their whole lives. They have no doubt the spirit world is real. It's part of the world they interact with. To this day, I don't see spirits in the room, but I know they're here. I guarantee you they're here. I would have to just do a little bit of a shift in consciousness, quiet the brain a little bit, do what I do before my one-on-one readings, and then here they are. They reveal themselves. We're also trained for seeing the world through our physical senses. And unfortunately, then thinking that that's the only world, and it's not. But when I went to Susan's funeral and saw her body in the coffin, that was my moment of knowing there's something more. That was an epiphany for me. Anybody, and by this age, most of us have seen a lifeless body. The transformation in how that body looks without something enlivening it, and that something is the spirit, the soul, is stunning, isn't it? Yeah. And that's what I knew when I looked at Susan. That's not her. But I also knew she was so vibrant, she had to still exist. And I was interviewed this morning, and beautiful Tangela asked me, you know, I'm asking my guides for help here because I just went completely blank, and they said, because we want you to move on faster. Okay. Nice. Don't leave me hanging out to dry here. Meditation, thank you. Okay. Only when I teach do I become a little bit like this and start conversing with spirits out loud. She asked me, how did you know to meditate? It was definitely intuitive. This was 2006. And it was not commonplace to meditate then. I just went into the aft cabin on our boat where we were living at the time, and I just closed my eyes and said, Susan, let me see you. So I'm going to share with you right now what I have discovered is the key to meditation when your goal is to connect with loved ones who have passed, or guides, or angels. And it took me decades to figure this one out. Well, 18 years anyway. You can sit in meditation and try to quiet your mind. That won't work really well because the mind won't be quiet. You can focus on your breath for decades and perhaps never connect with a loved one. What works is what I call a soul focus on one being. I sat for years, in my case, 3 years, before I finally connected with my Susan. Every day. Closed my eyes, got quiet, calmed down with the breath. Susan, let me feel you. Let me see you. Reveal yourself to me. Now, in those 3 years, the adventures in consciousness were phenomenal. I started to know things. I started to meet these beings who said they were my guides. At first, I thought, this is crazy, and then they proved their presence to me with evidence. I met angels. But where was Susan? She came back about 1.5 years ago to say, I held back. And she was smart. She knew that if I had connected with her within a month or 2 or even 1 year, I would have said, mission accomplished. Let me just talk to Susan. But instead, because I was so committed to connecting with her, I enjoyed those adventures in consciousness along the way, discovered I could connect with other people's loved ones. The irony, right? Other people's loved ones, but not my own at first. And developed a very clear connection because I didn't realize all of that meditation focusing only on where's Susan was the training ground. So that it got to the point where all I had to do was sit down, take a deep breath, relax and use the method I'm going to teach you in this workshop, and notice what arises. And finally, she came into awareness. 3 years, that's me. I have one of my students had a huge breakthrough recently after 18 months. Some people will have, by grace and experience, in just a few days because they're not meant to go down the path that I did. Every one of you is unique. So please don't say, oh, I can't do that for 3 years. We don't know. But I'm showing you what will work. Sit quietly and just notice what is arising in your awareness. And who, this is important, is doing the noticing. That's the point. That's where you learn who you really are. If there's a part of you that can step back from your story and observe it from a higher perspective, then the mind is more malleable than we think. And you start to see the life you're living as exactly what it is, a story. It's real, but it's not the entirety of you. And in these adventures in consciousness, you get to meet higher aspects of yourself. You get to meet guides who are here to help you on this journey, who planned this journey with you before you came here. But if you're like me with that prove it to me background, the very left brain logical side, you're going to want evidence, right? You're going to want validation. You don't want people to think you're crazy. That's such a human thing. You want to know it's not your imagination. So, I have the new Hay House book. Even before it's out, just last week, I signed a contract for another one that'll be out next year. They're having me rewrite my memoir, Messages of Hope, bring it up to date, and add in teaching tools at the end of each chapter. I just, was it just this morning? Finished updating a chapter all about how it's okay to put your loved ones to the test when they show up from across the veil. I've had Jesus come to me with no doubt that I was having a conversation with him, and I was raised with no religion. So this was really outside the box for me. And I knew that he wouldn't mind when I said, can you give me some evidence? Tell me something that I don't know here, so I know this is you. And he knocked my socks off, changed my world, and said to call him my friend, my brother. It was beautiful, so loving, so powerful. So this journey to connect with your loved ones who have passed can expand into something that changes your whole worldview. How's that sound? The best part for me is the peace that you find by sitting to try to connect with your loved ones carries over throughout the day. The love that you feel when you get beyond the story and all its BS, belief system, right? You know the acronym. When you get beyond your belief system, most of which is taught to you from other people. This is how the world works. This is who we are. When you get beyond that, all that's left is love. Love being lack of separation from anything else and anyone else. Think about when you love a pet with all your heart, or you fall in love during that honeymoon period. Don't you just love everything about them? There's no separation, just total connection. And then the honeymoon's over, and that's a different story. But that unconditional love, that's the truest sense of love. And you feel that when you sit quietly and move beyond the story. So, can anybody do this kind of connection? Anybody can connect with non-physical beings. If it's your calling to be a medium and do this for other people, you'll know it. I couldn't not do this work. It's absolutely my calling, but I had no idea at the time. My first metaphysical book is the biography of Anne Gaiman and Wayne Knoll. It's called The Priest and the Medium. That's another Hay House book. I wrote that before I knew I was going to be a medium. Now people read it and they say, your husband was a priest? I said, no, it's not about me. If they knew my husband, they would never ask that question. So, I'm going to teach you several methods that make it easy to meditate. I put meditate in quotes because we use that word, and right away I hear the two most common excuses that I get. I don't have time to meditate. I can't quiet my mind. So I know that many of you here have seen my work here. Some of you are in my current class online with the Shift Network now. You've heard probably every tool I'm going to teach you today, but it also is about the energy here. I am just so grateful that there's this beautiful community of people following this work, and we're just basking in the love and the connection. We passed out cards about the cruise that I have coming up in September. When I did one to Alaska last September, that was the thing everybody commented on. There's so much love. When I did a class in Savannah last month, the staff in the hotel is saying, what's with this group? There's so much love, and I hope you can feel it in the room here now. It's because your soul nudged you to be here now. The soul is shining through right now, beyond the story. And that's the goal. I used to have to prepare everything when I was in the Navy. I used to have to write out my talks, outline everything. I just threw a couple notes down here because Spirit will guide us so beautifully when we get out of the way. So right now they're saying, let's learn to sip. I know that a lot of you know about my sip of the divine, but this is such an easy tool, and it overcomes those two excuses about meditation. So you can take notes, but the video online is no more meditation excuses. Why is that? Because SIP stands for, you notice I'm throwing acronyms at you. Do you know about military people and the acronyms? That's a perfect way to remember things. You got your BS, now you got your SIP. SIP stands for sit in peace. And it's a double entendre here because if you can take 5 minutes every morning to make your favorite beverage, tea, coffee, smoothie, whatever it is, Metamucil, I don't know. And then drink it, take 5 minutes, then you can take 3 minutes to sit in peace with and as your higher self and tune in for guidance and get to know who you truly are. Could you do that? Absolutely. And that's what's beautiful about this. There are no excuses for not taking 3 minutes. So I want to challenge all of you to do the sip of the divine for 3 minutes a day for 3 weeks. That's how long it takes to get a new habit going. They just reminded me of something that I just learned a couple weeks ago. And that is, some people are afraid of feeling their deepest feelings. They're afraid of the thoughts that will come up. I didn't realize this because I love sitting in peace so much. But when you start sitting quietly with no music to distract you, no cell phone, no email, no Facebook to distract you, suddenly what you're trying to distract yourself from comes up in awareness. I was on the way to teach a workshop and having a talk with my beautiful friend Irene, whose daughter Carly is in spirit. And she said, oh no, I couldn't meditate at all in the first year after Carly passed. I couldn't handle those feelings. She said it got so bad that I would panic just thinking about being quiet, until it finally got so bad that I was panicking about panicking. This was revelatory to me to hear this. She said, I finally just said, okay, I give up. That's that point of surrender. She said, I'll just sit and feel the panic. So she sat, and here it came, this fear, and she looked at it, and she said it went poof, and it disappeared. Whereas before, it stayed around because she was resisting it. And before long, no more panic. This simple process, if you're just willing to feel the discomfort, will help so much. We're not here to feel better. We're here to feel better. And I was raised by the queen of denial. That was my mother. You're not allowed to be angry. You can't be sad. You can't be sick. So it's only in the last 10 years that I have really started feeling my feelings. And once you do, you realize that all emotions are like someone blowing cigar smoke in your face, if they're what we call negative emotions. Very unpleasant at first, doesn't feel good, but then it just flows right through. So if you just observe what arises when you spend 3 minutes to sit in peace, what's left when the thoughts pass? The peace. And what you're doing is training yourself then to have more space between the stuff that arises. And when I say stuff, this is something you can read about in this book, in The Awakened Way. Stuff is another acronym, STF. And it stands for the sensations, thoughts, and feelings that make up all experiences. That's all everything we experience is made of. So you sit in meditation and you notice what arises. Well, there's a thought. Ooh, there's a feeling. Oh, there's a sensation. And that's all it is. And you become curious about these things and you notice you're detached from it. And you realize you're not the experience, you're the observer of it. Now, when a loved one tries to get through to you, you've created space because it's not constant monkey mind. And they can put a thought in your head, or put a sensation in awareness, or give you a feeling, and it stands out from your normal stuff. This is the key. What stands out now that you're looking? The 3 E's that I talk about in Living the Awakened Way are educate yourself about the greater reality, then experience it for yourself, and then engage higher consciousness for yourself. So all the speakers here this weekend, we can talk and you're educating yourself, and that's awesome. But take tools to experience for yourself, and that's what the Sip of the Divine does. And then when something arises in awareness, you engage it. Who is this? Why did you just put that thought in my mind? Am I making this up? You engage, and next thing you know, you're having a conversation, an adventure in consciousness. If anybody has any questions as we go along, just raise your hand and we'll see how that goes.